Let me just reveal some things. First of all, is that the Jews who were brought in Israel, most of them are white. Not most of them, almost all of them are white, including me. I was brought in Israel from a country which is called Bulgaria. It's a European country, and I can tell you that in every European country there are Jews, and there is so-called organization Jewish Agency, which is trying to take those Jews to Israel. If you track this organization, you can find out that this is not an Israeli organization. This is an American organization. Jewish Agency is an American organization which has the exclusive right to decide who is Jewish and who is not on this planet, and who to be taken to Israel and who's not. Now, if you do research, you will find out that in Africa, in Black Africa, they're looking for Jews only in Ethiopia. They bring Jews only from Ethiopia. And I can tell you by knowing a lot of people, Ethiopian Jews here in Israel, that they're treated very badly. Very badly. And many of them commit suicide because they cannot take it. They come from some place, Ethiopia, they don't have much there, but they live decent life. And when they come here and try to be humiliated and so on, some of them cannot even take it. Now, what I'm trying to say is that why from each white country this Jewish agency is trying to bring Jews, and when it's about Black Africa, they're going to Ethiopia, and this is where they stop. The only one place. Now, because of the same thing, they're trying to do the white supremacy here. They try to bring white guys here and to take the supremacy over Arabs, which are the local citizens, and over blacks, which are so far they're only the Ethiopian Jews. Now, what I'm trying also to say is that another question is why America needs Israel. There is no oil like in other Middle Eastern countries. There's nothing they can be attracted to. But why do they do all these things? Why do they invest money, bring white people and so on, when they build their system of white supremacy, just like in America they build in Israel? Why? And I can tell you why. Because the true Jews, according to the Bible, you can check it in the Bible, you can read Job 30:30 and some other places, they have never been white. They have been people of color. And they have not stopped in Ethiopia. They were in Ethiopia, Sudan, and they have settled in West Africa. From West Africa, they have been taken as slaves to America. Brothers and sisters, blacks of America, it's you. You are the true Hebrews. You are the true Hebrews from the Bible. America gonna do everything, gonna invest as much money as it has, gonna fight as much wars as they can, gonna invite as much weapons as they can, just to hide this away from you. Gonna take Israel, gonna bring white people here, and to tell you these are the Jews. Gonna kill you, gonna kill Arabs, gonna mistreat white people like this guy, just to tell you this lie that you are nobody and we are the Jews with all the history and so on. It has been deleted, your history. You don't know who you are. Don't forget about it. This is why America has been taking your history away, never to find out that it's all about you. I'm telling you this, please. I don't ask you to come to Israel and to start a revolution. I'm just asking you to start thinking this way, to believe me a little bit, because I'm living in Israel and I'm part of this injustice. I really believe that people like me and you, we can bring the justice back. Thank you.
Shalom, shalom. We are sitting here with Cohane Michael Ben Levi, great teacher within the Israelite community, and author of the following books, be it Israelite and Jews, The Significant Difference, Final Resolution, The Separation of Truth and Lies in the Bible, as well as Beginner's Hebrew Handbook. Cohane Michael has also been a contributor to the magazine Hint, Hebrew Israelite Nation Times, and the title of that magazine being The Quest for Identity. So we're sitting here with Cohane Michael to discuss the importance of identity as children of the diaspora. So let's go on ahead and jump into it with Cohane Michael. What is the difference, or what different elements make up an individual's identity?
I'd like to begin by saying that, one, usually when Afro-Americans, sometimes described as so-called blacks, are asked the question of, what are you? It's not the proper question. They should be asked, who are you? Because when you're speaking about identity, it's not a what, it's a who. Mm-hmm. So ethnicity is another term that is not frequently associated with us. Nationality and identity are not questions that we are asked because we're never taught and have not been taught in the public school system of who we are, where we came from, what our history is, what is our culture, what was our language. These are the voids. So this is a void that is prevalent among all those in the diaspora. And so when we start to speak about nationality, we have to get to the understanding of there's a distinction between religion and nationality or ethnicity. And this is perhaps an area that have our children confused because they don't have a clear understanding as other nations and people do. They're almost born into the knowledge of their identity, their language, their ethnicity. And so for us, this must be understood as a humanitarian issue. Humanity owes it to all of those in the diaspora to have restored the true knowledge of who they are, where they came from, what their language, history, and culture is all about. Again, this has nothing to do with religion or your religious persuasion. What I'm speaking about is ethnicity. Again, the term nationality, which is the same thing, it's a separate issue. A person born into an ethnic group or nationality has to understand that you're born into it. Who your parents are and who your ancestors are is a DNA question. It's a chromosome issue. Has nothing to do with religion. Religion of a person can change many times. You can almost change it every day if you wanted to. But you cannot change who you were born, your identity. We have to understand as a people that when you're born, you can never change, and who you're born, you cannot change it. For instance, if you're born Chinese, in death, you will be a Chinese. If you're born French, in your death, you will still be a Frenchman. If you're born whatever, in your death, you'll be the same thing as you were at the time of your birth, based on your parentage. If your parents were Russian or German, you get your nationality, your ethnicity. Also must be understood that geographic location or moving from one place to another does not change your ethnicity. If a Chinese person comes to the United States of America, there are Chinese residing in America. Malcolm X said that if you put a cat in the oven, it's not a biscuit. So the location does not change who you are. We have to understand that so-called Negroes, blacks, Africans, whatever term you might have been ascribed because it's not who you are, this is the real dilemma. We have an identity crisis as a people. And so the Negro problem can only be solved when we have the true knowledge of ourselves restored to us. That's the key that we must understand. And I'm hoping that as I speak to not only the those in the diaspora that have been stripped of their culture, their language, their identity, their heritage, that the whole world will understand that this is something that is necessary for humanity as a whole. I often like to apologize for the fact that when we realized that we had an obligation as a people, as the children of Israel, the people of the Bible, to be a light unto the nations, to live a moral lifestyle that would be an example of a connection with the true and living creator and maker of heaven and earth. It would also perhaps solve some of the religious differences, because one thing when we speak about the creator, it unites all humanity. We have one creator. Some people will call him God, that made us all. That source of life, the tree of life, is that spirit, that breath that the creator has put in all human beings. He made the heavens, the universe, the earth, the seas, everything that's in it, the creatures. And all of this is recorded in the book we know as the Old Testament, the Bible. It's the original writing of the Bible. The New Testament we know came later as Greek writings, but the original writings of the Creator, and especially the Torah, which Moses received on Mount Sinai. And we do not discard that information when we see in the newspapers that the land of Israel is still regarded as the Holy Land, the Promised Land. So these are facts that I'm speaking about. This is not my opinion. These are things that all humanity needs to investigate and recognize. And the identity of the so-called Negro, the black man, those in the diaspora, they are the hidden ones. We are the ones whose identity has been hidden. It's not that it's not known. It is known, but it's just has been hidden as a conspiracy for reasons that perhaps I won't go into at this time. But there are those that know this information already, and we sometimes get bits of it thrown out to us, but the dots are not connected. Many have heard about the Limba of South Africa. They know that they're the Hebrew Israelites. It's known worldwide. The Israelites in Dimona, Israel, that migrated there, and many Israelites throughout the Holy Land, the Promised Land. Individuals have gone and settled in the land of Israel who are part of the diaspora, and their ancestors were part of the Atlantic slave trade. We've heard of the Beta Yisrael, called the Falasha, that were airlifted under a covert operation, Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. And they came out of Ethiopia, existing centuries and millennium before any Jewish community ever existed in Europe. And so that connection needs to be made. The people of Ghana, we've heard of the Ashanti and the Irowe, also sometimes known to be of the tribe of Lewi. Documentaries have been written on the French diaspora, and have scholars who have recognized that there are French-speaking Israelites throughout the continent of Africa. We have the Zulu and the Xhosa of South Africa as well, who've acknowledged, and they've been practicing circumcision and the culture of the Torah for thousands of years. In the Caribbean, we hear often out of Jamaica the 12 tribes of Israel and the Rastafarian movement, and all of us relate to the songs of the late, great Bob Marley and how he linked up with this information. You have in South Africa and Guyana, and also in Brazil, Israelites that exist, and I'm part of a community and have been working in Guyana and the Caribbean, teaching this information for over 40 years. In North America, we hear about the black Jews, and don't ever make that connection that they're not saying that they're Jews, but that term has been ascribed to them, but they're saying that they are the children of Israel, the 12 tribes. Judah being the term that sometimes is not linked with Jews because that's a term derived from the word Yehuda or Judah in the English language, but Yehuda in the Hebrew language. Even as far as China and Japan, there are people who have stood up and said, we are connected with the tribes of Israel, because it is known that the tribes of Israel were scattered throughout the world. If you read any Bible, that's one of the curses that was placed on the children of Israel, that they would be scattered to the four corners of the world if they broke the covenant, the agreement that was made with the Creator. He always referred to himself as being the power of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. And these terms are used in remote places, in rural areas all across the planet, but they're hidden. It's not in the media. They're not going to show you black Palestinians in the land of Israel and Israelites who never left the land of Israel, but there are those that know this information. The question is, did you know it? Those who are listening. Because I'm here to share information that is vitally needed by our people to understand that they must know. There are Europeans in the footage that is a part of this message to say that they know, and they're confessing, and they're even pleading, some of them, with our people to wake up, because we're in a spiritual sleep. Some of us are in a deep sleep, and there are those who've awakened. Even throughout the scriptures, the prophets say, awake, awake. Look unto the pit from where you were hewn, unto Abraham and Sarah. And so this information is there, but it's just been suppressed. It's been hidden. Truth has nothing to do with, again, trying to be racist. This is not a racist message. This message is just, as I said, truth that needs to be told, that needs to be known. It's going to help not only those that have been deprived of this information via the Atlantic slave trade and colonialism in Africa, in the Caribbean, in North America. And this truth has to be accepted and understood by all people. It's so important that we understand this issue of ethnicity. And again, I want it to be known that the emancipation of the slaves was a freedom from the plantation. It was a determination, a parliamentary decision, a court's decision, a government's decision to end the plantation system. It did not restore the identity to those slaves that were in the colonies. So that the term that must be understood, and what I'm representing in this message, is that it's a redemptive message. We have to be redeemed. Just as you buy or go to a pawn shop and you leave an item and you receive money for it, to redeem that, to have it restored in your own possession, is not emancipation. That's redemption of the item. And as a people, we need restoration of the knowledge of who we are, our identity, our language, our culture, our history. And this is what I'm able to provide in so many other teachers, but this information is suppressed. It's not given the opportunities to be shared with the world. Many times when they do put on an Israelite, they put on someone who is racist or expressing their ideas because of sometimes the anger of what has happened to us as a people, and it becomes a message of discrimination or racism in reverse. This is not what I'm representing here. We are one humanity, and when you see the suffering of our own people, as well as the suffering of any people, as a human being, knowing that it could be your son, your daughter, your grandmother, your grandfather that's experiencing such a harsh and terrible experience, you should have some compassion towards all human beings. We see it expressed many times with people who forget about ethnicity and they see someone who's threatened or life is threatened and they just intervene and help, and the color of their skin doesn't matter. More of this would be a blessing to the entire planet if we understood the human part of our existence. Human beings today are not acting as human beings. We need to bring the element of being a human being back into our existence across the planet Earth. And it's going to change the state of the world. And a lot of the suffering, the problems that we have are based on the fact that, again, the moral teachings, once again, of the Creator, which touch upon perhaps every problem that we're facing on this planet, is based on some violation. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. These are events that have rippling consequences. And so we need to examine the rules of life, because they're rules of life. And along with our identity, which is what we're lacking as a people, are the standards that were high standards and dignified standards and respectful thoughts and ideas about life, which when you respect yourself, you're also given respect. And so this is another very important reason why this information needs to be given to our youth, and that parents need to know that we need to bring the Creator back into not only the schools, but the home and the communities and our nations. And this is so very important. If a person goes to the pawn shop, as I mentioned, they redeem the item that was left there. So we need to start thinking not about 1865 in North America or 1834 in the Caribbean when we were emancipated, but get into the true core of the real issue. Who are we? What is our identity? And the information is there. We can be restored. You have programs, Ancestry, DNA, that can go and find the identity of people, and sometimes the information doesn't lead us to the facts that I'm speaking about, because, again, it's not designed to really deal with this in an honest and a truthful manner with the elements that go beyond just the blood type, because people have been mixed, and so you'll have that, but there's history. There are also the links with others in West Africa, authors like Joseph Williams, who speaks about Hebrewism in West Africa, and we came from West Africa. You can go to Ghana and see that there are signs that say, "We're the children of Israel." They were taken in Atlantic slave trade. Big sign, billboards that tell you this, but this information is not shared with the wider public and world. We must be restored to our roots. Again, this is a humanitarian issue. No person or people should be denied the knowledge of themselves. The conspiracy must cease, because it has been a conspiracy. There are those that know what I'm saying is true. This information is not something that you cannot investigate. I'm just suggesting that we investigate on a deeper level. That's why you go to school. You go to school to receive an education, to learn how to learn. And that affords you, as in my generation, going to the library and following up your leads. There are libraries like the Schomburg Library that has information that is available specifically in this area. We need to have our scholars. We have too many people with doctorate degrees and master degrees and all types of lawyers. You mean to tell me that they don't know or they haven't been able to find out this information that I'm sharing with you, that even if you haven't, I'm asking, did you know it? If you don't know it, just take the opportunity to investigate it. We have people that have emerged in our society that know this, celebrities that have said it. Going back to James Baldwin, Sammy Davis Jr. might not have been able to link the difference and distinguish from being Jewish, but somehow he got onto this link of information and was no longer a Christian. You've heard Minister Farrakhan say it.
Okay.
It's just out there, but the link to be able to speak the Hebrew language. I speak Hebrew fluently, so therefore it affords me an opportunity to go deeper into it because you have to know the language. If you're going to be a good Catholic, you better know Latin. If you're going to be a real scholarly Muslim, you better learn Arabic. And if you're going to know about the Israelite heritage, you have to know that they were Hebrews, which in the language they were called Ivri. Abraham was called Ha-Ivri. A woman is called a Ivriya. And so that we have to learn our language. Language is so important. There's no people on the planet Earth that do not have a language. And we have one, we just have to learn it. Culture is learned. It can be learned at any time. So therefore, even if you've been deprived of it for thousands of years, you can learn your culture, you can learn your language. It needs to be in so-called black studies departments. I remember when I was at City College and brought these issues to the professors. Why is it that when a person who's of Eastern Arabic heritage, they led into Arabic? People who are Latin, they are told to study Spanish. Why is it that no language is offered for a person that takes black studies when there's no real nation, region of the world, people that are black? I mean, that's a color. It's an adjective. A person, place, or thing is a noun. We have to figure out the noun of our existence. Who are we? It's not a color. And so trying in this simple way to say that this has to be known. This is not racist. Again, it's not hatred or an attack on any people. It's a message to our people, the Israelites, and to the world about who we are. It's the knowledge of self, ethnicity, nationality. When you know your nationality, there are basic things that automatically come with it, regardless of that ethnicity or nationality. You get history with your nationality. You get the land of your origin with nationality, your sovereign place of birth. You get your language when you know your nationality and your culture. You get your ancestral knowledge. This is power lacking among slaves throughout the diaspora. So-called blacks are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And I'm hoping and praying that this knowledge will stimulate and motivate our people to investigate, to go into not only the Old Testament of the Bible, but to not just read it, but research it and learn the language of that Old Testament. The original language, the first oldest living language, is Ivrit, known as Hebrew in our day and time. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank those that are listening. Hope and pray that this will help you, especially our children and our youth, in seeking the true roots of who we are and who they are as a people.
Thank you so much, Cohane Michael, for giving us that information of trying to reclaim and reestablish the knowledge of who we are, our true nationality, and the importance of it for our people. Real briefly, could you speak about some other celebrities that have come into the knowledge of self recently? We have people like Kendrick Lamar, like Amari Stoudemire, Reggie White, that also have come into the knowledge of self. Can you also speak about that and any message you might have to the celebrities?
We have great souls. Oprah Winfrey, I love her. Tyler Perry. I hope and pray that one day he'll make movies and films that will be positive and uplifting. We have too many movies, and Hollywood tends to always bring the types of messages that make us violent or make us immoral. And if he could just get into presenting some of the Bible stories with blacks, which are the true people and the way it should be portrayed, with some of the high ethics of right and clean ideas, be wonderful. To see Oprah Winfrey wake up and know this. I was told that Oprah's name was Orpah, which is mentioned in the book of Ruth. But in her birth, could be maybe incorrect, but that the spelling was wrong in her birth, and they called her Oprah. But Orpah was a Hebrew figure in the book of Ruth. And our parents, our grandmothers and grandfathers, I know many of those listening have heard this through their grandparents and made connections with it. And so I'm just praying that it'll spread more and that they'll talk to Amari Stoudemire and ask them what stimulated, what made you. The CNN, I believe, was on 60 Minutes, the information on Reggie White, and documented. He went to Israel, he investigated, and you have to also link with Martin Luther King's message when he said that I've been to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
He said also that I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. The promised land is the land of Israel, the land of our ancestors in Northeast Africa. And we need to make all of those links, and then we'll begin to understand, and it'll be great for this entire planet. It's the fulfillment of prophecy that the Creator who scattered Israel would one day awaken them and gather them. And so this is a redemptive and it's a prophetic message to have us understand that the Bible has a message that we're not going to heaven. We're going back to the land in Northeast Africa called the Holy Land, the Prophet, the Promised Land, the land of Israel.
Thank you so much, Cohane Michael,
And
for
I want
that.
to add this to it. He said that his house will be a house of prayer for all peoples. So that, again, this is a message to all mankind that we all one day are going to serve the same Creator. We're going to be one humanity that lives with each other in a righteous manner.
Hallelujah. And with that, I definitely thank you for taking out your time to sit down with the nation of Israel, sit down with all of our people that know who they are, who don't know who they are, and the importance of that. For those that do want to get more information from Cohane Michael, you can go to the website as well as the YouTube page, Levitical Communications, as well as communication through leviticalcommunications@gmail.com. And Cohane Michael will be bringing out some more information as well We're in a very important time in our history where our people need to know who they are, and we thank you for Cohane Michael for being a great part of that.
My divine pleasure. Thank you for having me, Nathaniel.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.